Today we're going to talk about taking things slow. I know it sounds like a really simple concept, but it's one of those things that it's really easy to get caught up in the events, caught up in the emotions, and feeling like you need to do something. And it makes it really hard to just slow down and take a pause. And this is important in a bunch of different areas. It's important whenever you're dealing, obviously it's important when you're dealing with your ex. When they're doing things to trigger you or gaslight you, or to get that emotional response, you need to not take the bait and you need to slow down and really think through what your response or reaction is actually going to be, if any. It's also critically important when we're dealing with our children because you get in the mode where you want to, or you feel like you need to immediately address a bunch of different issues. A prime example of that is what I was talking about before. Whenever my girls basically came to me and said that they wanted to go to a movie, but they didn't want to do it with Debbie. They wanted it to just be with me. And I didn't respond right. That was when that happened. But it was both, right? It was my middle daughter, who's 16, and my 11-year-old. And my 16-year-old is the one who started it. She basically, I came home from work, getting ready to, basically like 20 or 30 minutes, needed to take them to their moms. And, she came to me and she said, hey, I really want to go see this movie. She wants to see the Transformers movie. She's like, I really want to see this movie, but I just want it to be the four of us. Now, initially when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, okay, so you want to see it with me instead of your mom. Which, typically the kids don't ever pick me for anything. And I get it, right? I mean, though it does hurt my feelings sometimes, but did it in the past. It's like one of those things where I get it. I understand what's going on. I understand that they're trying to get every little breadcrumb they can from their mom. And, it complicates things. So initially when they said it, I was like, oh, okay, you're talking about, you want us to do it. And I was like, well, no, we just want the four of us. We don't want Debbie to go. And I was like, and honestly, I'm thinking, okay, 3.5 years I've been with Debbie. She's been an instrumental. We don't live together, like I've said before, but it's a serious relationship. And I didn't engage in it, right? So I like, okay, we'll talk about it later. And Debbie and I talked about it, and we were working through various scenarios, and I'm thinking, okay. I think that for the most part, this is coming from the ex. Somehow it doesn't make sense. We've had a really great time on a lot of different things. For this to come up, it means a couple of different things, right? It either means, one, that their mom is doing subtle manipulation to bring this point up and to cause this conflict. The second point, which is not as great, is my middle daughter is being manipulative. She's trying to manipulate me to do what she wants to do, and are trying to get some type of reaction or response, which that's bad because that has a potential to mean that she might have MPD tendencies, or even the whole disorder. And I mentioned before that with her therapist and stuff, we're working on that, and there's positive signs that she does have empathy, and we're working through that. Okay, but here's my point. I could have easily and justifiably immediately got into an argument with her about, you don't get to tell me what we're going to do on that. You don't get to decide who is in my life or whatever, that type of thing, which sounds really harsh, but because there's in part of the discussion trying to do a post-mortem on this, and I go, okay, what's the way to go forward? What is the way to deal with this in an appropriate way to, one, not fall, not make the situation worse, not fall into a trap that's being set by the ex, and how to basically take, again, another one of those double binds because there's no real good answer, and make the best decision going forward. When this whole thing happened, my youngest daughter also jumped in on it and was like, yeah, we need to do stuff just with you, that type of thing. And trying to couch it in that we want one-on-one time, that they wanted one-on-one time with me, which, okay, I understand that. That's great, right? So had I responded initially it would have been bad because the conversation would have degraded. Now, when the kids came back after a couple of days with their mom, I did bring it up with my daughter, and I was very calculated on how I did it. I asked her, I was taking her to tennis practice, which we have to drive like 45 minutes to an hour to get to the practice. The practice is a couple hours. We grab something to eat and come back. So basically, it's almost, close to 2.5 to 3 hours of one-on-one time. And like a knucklehead, I started the conversation on the drive out saying, do you have an issue with Debbie? And the initial response was basically rage, right? And, it's like, oh, I knew you were going to go that way. I knew you were going to take it that way, which, if you take the way how it was brought up, it's kind of, how else would you take it? So towards the end, after practice, in the middle of dinner, she backed off. She's like, well, it's not so much that I just want to spend one-on-one time with you, and we've done a lot of stuff with her lately and whatever. I'm like, hey, whatever. That would have been a more appropriate way to say it, but to turn around and say it the way you did wasn't really cool. I mean, it wasn't really fair, and it wasn't really, fair to Debbie, fair to the situation, and it was kind of mean. And that's kind of the way I dealt with it, right? And now the caveat is like, okay, so now is it that she really had an epiphany and decided to reevaluate the whole conversation, or is it she realizing that what she was trying to accomplish didn't work and it's a manipulative ploy to still ultimately get what she wants? I don't know. Only time's really going to tell on that. But the point of that story and what I'm trying to illustrate on it is I could have easily, and in the past, I would, like 4 years ago, I would have dealt with it in a different way. I would have immediately dealt with it, and I think I would have dealt with it wrong. There's one of the things you have to realize is slowing down and having a rational, methodical thought process on how you're going to deal with something isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know that a lot of us get in those situations where something happens, and then afterwards we're like, oh man, I should have said X or I should have said Y, and for the most part, okay, I get that, but realistically, you're much better off thinking about what you're going to do and having a really well thought out approach and thinking about what the ramifications are to deal with it. Now, as I mentioned the other day in a couple of in my latest videos, my youngest wanted to spend time with Debbie and ended up doing that last Sunday, and it was really kind of bizarre because and Debbie and I talking about this, we were thinking, oh crap, this is probably going to be the shift where we're going to lose some of those gains that we made. Part of it's going to be age related, part of it's going to be because of the situation with my youngest. And it's like everything kind of went back to normal. And see, and that's the thing. I think sometimes what our children are doing in these situations is they're testing us, right? They're trying to see how we're going to react. They're going to see if we're going to be rational and maintain the chaos-free environment that we're trying to maintain, or whether we're going to react in either the way they've been programmed to think that we're going to react, or react the way maybe the other parent reacts. And they're trying to gauge their own situation and what our interaction is going to be. So I'd highly encourage you when you're going through this to slow down when you're dealing with this. Even if you get really angry, try to take a breath, try to calm yourself down a little bit and really think through it. And it's tough. This isn't one of those things that you're going to be able to master the first day. I mean, if you watch this video and this afternoon something happens, I don't necessarily expect that you're going to be able to just, take that breath, slow down and stop that interaction. That would be great. Hopefully you do, right? But if not, think about it. Just think about it and go, okay, crap. Now I see what he was saying, and I can see how maybe that technique would help. And guys, I'm telling you, the most amazing thing on this that it keeps getting reinforced for me is how just these little changes are not basically these little, not making those little mistakes really help calm things down. It takes a little bit, right? Because as you start switching, your kids aren't necessarily going to believe that there's a change. Okay. And so you're going to have to keep doing it right for a little bit until they start to believe that what's happening is real. And it's tough. I mean, I struggled a lot with this. This isn't something that I figured out really quick. I knew I didn't want the chaos in my life, so I was trying to mitigate that at the beginning, but it was really hard. And there are a lot of times where I did get triggered and I did get provoked by my kids because of the situation. Either directly they were doing something, or indirectly, or just the fact that the circumstances were so wrong and felt so unfair at the time that it was really hard not to have that emotional response. But I'm telling you, if you can get that under control, even if you're faking it, you're going to start to see improvements. And I tell you, those improvements, when you start seeing them, it builds on itself, right? So when you do something and you see a little improvement with your environment, with your kids, then it's like it keeps building. And then it helps you to process this and get through it, because you're like, oh, okay, I can. And before I go, what I want to say on that, so when I was going through this situation and I would sit there, after the kids went back, were with their mom, thinking, oh my God, am I going to have to wait until my kids are in their 20s or 30s before I get some validation that any of this is helping? And that was hard. I mean, that was a really hard leap of faith that I kept just persevering, pushing through. But what I will tell you is, like I was saying earlier, I started to see those little improvements, and those little improvements started to grow. It started with those transition days, those groundhog days that I like to call them, not being so bad. Okay, so on that, just when you're going through it, just think about that. Think about taking a breath, taking a moment, and really being methodical about your responses, because it will pay off. I'm telling you, it'll pay off. So on that, I'm going to wrap this video up. If you want to add to the discussion, please do that in the comment section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done it already, if you could venture over to the dadsurvivingdivorce.com website and sign up for the newsletter, that would be greatly appreciated. And I will chat with you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye.